Good morning. Good morning from the beautiful northern rivers here of Australia, not far from Byron Bay, one of the truly magical parts of the world. I've just got back from my daily shopping, my weekly farmers market shopping at the Mullumbimby markets. Now I'm down on the beach getting some vitamin D and looking for some kelp that will have washed up on the beach to dehydrate. Of course, I've got my skin tonic on, or I'm about to put it on when I take my shirt off, to protect my skin from the sun, which still, although, allows me to absorb the vitamin D. And why do I? Well, absorb the sunlight, because what we now know, and I talked about that last week, is that vitamin D is an autocoid substance, A-U-T-A-C-O-I-D, autocoid, which is something powerful which is produced and acts locally. So it turns out that we need vitamin D produced in the tissues. It's a stunning word today. Produced in the tissues to have its protective effect. So which is why I want to get down the beach and get as much of my body exposed to the sun as possible, because that sunlight is absorbed into my body and helps produce the vitamin D locally. Which then brings me on to this little substance, which I've just collected a whole bag of at the markets to sun dry and powder, called turmeric. Now, we know that turmeric is this incredibly medicinal substance, but the problem with turmeric has always been that it's not very well absorbed. Well, it turns out, according to scientific research, that may not actually be a problem. And it reminds me of the whole vitamin C saga, and we've always said that if you take too much vitamin C, you just end up with expensive urine, because that excess vitamin C is excreted in the urine. Well, we used to say that until about 4 years ago, when the Korean researchers found that people who had vitamin C in their urine had a much lower incidence of bladder and kidney cancer. So of course it makes sense that you want a substance like vitamin C, which is protective against cancer, being around cells which are exposed to toxicity. So the vitamin C, it turns out, is very protective of the kidneys and the bladder. Turns out it's the same thing with turmeric. So we don't necessarily want our turmeric absorbed. We're busy, formulating all these liposomal substances to maximize the absorption of turmeric. But what we now know is that of that turmeric which is not normally absorbed, it goes down to the lower gastrointestinal system, where it helps diversify and optimize our microbiome. And also, just like my skin, where I've got these nutrients on my skin protecting it now, also not only needs protection, it needs feeding by these plant-based oils I put on my skin to protect it. So too does our gastrointestinal system. I mean, a large colon can be a fairly toxic place at times. That's what it does. And if you're working as a toxic dump site, you need some protection. So it's that turmeric and the medicine in it, which not only nourishes the cells of the intestinal system, not only protects it against the toxicity exposed to, but it also helps diversify our microbiome, which is one of the great extinction events of this century, the extinction of the microbiome. So once again, we're finding the science is proving that nature has this inherent wisdom, and obeying, listening to, living with those nature's rhythms is a very, very powerful way of optimizing our health and energy. So have a great day, everybody. Peace and love, and I'll see you on Sunday from the waterfall. Bye.